Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Gal Swisa Cohen. 3 years ago, my family and I moved to Long Island with a clear mission to serve as the living bridge between the people of Israel and the incredible community here. Out of this journey, I created The Israeli Bond, a podcast designed to tell the story of Israel and its people beyond the headlines. We are here for the authentic, the personal, and the direct stories that brings us close together. This podcast is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County, New York, and it is thanks to their vision and support that this content is brought to you today. And let's begin. I'm super excited to introduce a very, very special guest of mine, Roni Raffeld Bluth.
Very nice.
Roni, please introduce yourself to the audience, the ones...
To the world.
To the world, yeah, exactly.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Can I have like a small anecdote before? So it was very funny because Gal reached out to me on LinkedIn. And what was so funny, she said, Roni, is there a chance maybe you're coming to New York soon? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. So we were able to do this here in person. So thank you.
And funny enough, it's at the same time that we're still here because in 2 months we're going back to Israel.
Exactly. The next podcast is going to be in Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm Roni Raffeld Bluth. I'm married to Pitzi, which is a very cute name. He's the youngest of 8, so he was given a very chamud, we say in Hebrew, a cute name. I'm the mother of Noam, David, Itai, and Or. And we live in Tzofim, which is a nice yeshuv in the Shomron.
And you also, this is the reason that I contact you in LinkedIn. You're also hosting a podcast, right?
Exactly. So I have a few hats that I'm wearing, especially during this war. I'm also the wife of a wounded soldier. I'm also a reservist, a miluimnikit, and I'm also the creator of 2 podcasts, actually, Alumot Krav and 646, a war story. I think we're going to shed light on the Alumot Krav, and just in a sentence, I'll say it's a podcast that give voice to the wives of the wounded since October 7th.
So this is super interesting. And this is exactly why I reached out to you in LinkedIn. You sounded like a very interesting person. And as I told you before, I think that there are 2 main topics that I think you're an interested person in general. But what I think that we'll do today is that I want to have us talk about you, about your story, okay? Mm-hmm. Your story, your family story, and what led you to start this Alumot Krav podcast, a genius name, but we will touch upon it later. And let's just start the conversation, and we'll see
where we're going.
Yeah,
where we're heading at. Okay.
So I know that the podcast is mostly about October 7th and what happened afterwards, but let's talk about you, about Roni and Pitzi and their family and your family before October 7th.
Okay.
To get the background of it.
Let me try to recall, what happened before. Okay, so let's talk. So I was born in Yerushalayim and grew up in a modern Orthodox family, Tzionut Datit. Then I went to a midrasha for a year. And continued to the army. I always knew I'm going to be a mefakedet, a commander in the army. I served for 4 years in a base called Chavat HaShomer.
Oh.
It's for at-risk soldiers that come from broken houses, broken homes. Some of them have criminal records, violence, drugs. And I was their commander for 4 years. I finished my service as a company commander and started life. Along the way, I met Pitzi. He was still in the army. He was an officer, a commander at Egoz Special Unit. And, like a very normal, very boring life in Israel. We got married. I knew along the way that I'm going to marry him. It took a while for him to understand. I heard about his family before. He has a very special family. I read an article on the newspaper about a family that lives in Neve Tzuf in Binyamin. About a special family, 7 boys and 1 girl. All of them were combat soldiers. And there were only 2 that were still available. So I decided I don't want to take the pilot. I'll take the one who is in the Goz. And that's how our story started. And I went to the university. I studied, my first degree was in political science and Middle East studies. I continued to study conflict resolution. I still can't resolve the conflicts between my kids. So I don't know if it worked out for me. And just before October 7th, we were on a shlichut, on a mission, you can say, in Montreal for 3 years. Pitzi, my husband, was the head of security of the Israeli consulate. And an adventure, we arrived in Montreal with 2 kids. We returned to Israel with 3. I always joke that the third one, Itai, was born there. He calls himself Itai HaKanadai, which is Itai the Canadian, but in a small, funny way. And we came back. We returned to Israel just 1 year before the war started. And I'll finish by saying that I remember when I arrived in Montreal, I was worried. I was concerned that my children will lose their Israeli grit, their edge. I think I prayed too hard because then October 7th happened while we were in Israel, and I think they're very resilient now. So, yeah.
Yeah, so your family experienced October 7th in your house, like the closest that it can be. Can you take us to October 7th?
Okay. So I always say that each one of us has his own story about October 7th. Every person can sit here in my seat now and talk about his October 7th and the war. So now today it's my turn just to share my story with very bitsniut, I say, I'm very honest about my story, very also modest about it. So October 7th in the morning was Simchat Torah, and we actually didn't wake up. I heard knocks on the door. We lived just across my cousin. He knocked on the door. I heard Pitzi opening the door. They were whispering. I came out of our bedroom and I see Pitzi sitting on the sofa, with one hand holding his cell phone and the other one holding his head. And he says, Roni, eze bardak, what chaos. There's a war in the south. We're Shomrei Shabbat. For me, it was weird to see him with the cell phone. Not too weird because of his role and his job, but I felt like something really bad happened. And he continued and he said, your mother called and they can't reach your brother, your youngest brother, Yoav. Yoav is, at that time, a sniper at the paratroopers brigade at Sayeret Sanchanim. And at that Shabbat, he was at Nachal Oz base.
Wow. In military service, like a regular service?
Yeah, mandatory service. And that was very difficult to hear because we just, and October, now we are very, we have all the knowledge about what happened then. But at that time, I was thinking, okay, sababa, okay, there's a war, whatever. But I'm sure it's a base. They have soldiers there. They have combat soldiers. I assume everything is okay. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, he sent a text message to my mother saying, I'm alive. And that's when we understood that something really bad is happening.
Yeah, if he feels the need to say that he's alive, so there's something going on that maybe would have questioned this.
Exactly. I remember my mother later on, I think a year and a half later, my mother showed me her a text message she sent him. Back, she sent him, יברכך השם וישמרך, יאר השם פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא השם פניו אליך, וישם לך שלום. And I get tears in my eyes when I think about it. Our story with Yoav never ended, I say, but it has a happy ending. He's just now he's traveling in Jamaica, and I'm going to meet him tonight in New York. So Baruch Hashem.
Okay, so this angle turned out to be
Baruch
great.
Hashem, yeah.
But that moment, so you said Pitzi is on the sofa, grabbing his hat, and then what?
And then he said, Roni, I have to go to Miluim, to reserve duty. I remember telling him, at that time we had 3 kids, Noam, David, and Itai. Noam was 8 years old, David was 5.5, and Itai was 2.5. Noam, that time, she stayed by her friend's house, just across the street. I told him, Pitzi, before you leave, stop by your house and say bye to Noam.
Why?
I don't know. I never make anything I don't know. I had a feeling go say bye. I don't know why. And Noam rushed back home. She was hysterical, really. And she said, Abba yamut b'milchama. Abba is going to die in war. So I grabbed a map.
What did you tell her when she's telling you?
Yeah, so I took a map and I told her, Noam, look, the war is here, down south. We live here, central Israel. And Abba is going up north. He's even safer than us. And he was safe until October 9th, 2 days later. I remember around, just to explain, Pitzi was a commander at the Igos unit. He had his soldiers from the mandatory service. He knew for already 12 years. And on October 9th, I remember around...
Wait, just a minute, because I'm thinking that maybe some of our listeners doesn't understand. So there's a war in the south, but still some reservists going to the north because we're afraid that something will happen in the north. So we rather have forces there. So Pitzi was one of the forces that was sent to the north.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I must say that I was very, I can't say happy, but I was very... relieved that he was sent up north and not to the south, to the south, because Gaza is where the war is happening. I think he crushed our dreams when October 9th happened. Around 2:30 p.m., we were texting each other, Pitzi and I remember thinking to myself, wait, Roni, maybe you shouldn't send this message. Maybe this could be the last message. So I said, Roni, stop thinking too much. Just send the message. So I asked him, Pitzi, where's the pizza knife? And then he stopped answering. By the way, I still can't find the pizza knife until today. At around 6:30 p.m., 7 o'clock, I received a phone call from my brothers-in-law. At that time, 5 of Pitzi's brothers were enlisted or in the army because that's their day job. And brother-in-law number 7, Aryeh, calls me and he says, Roni, Netanel, and I, brother-in-law number 6, are here, just really close to your house. We were thinking just to stop by and say hi. And I was like, amazing, come, say hi, great.
Very suspicious of him.
Exactly. And as I hung up the phone, I was like, wait, we're in the middle of the war. Why are they here? They're supposed to fight now. So it was smart because I went out from the house. I left the kids eating dinner and I was waiting for them on the porch. And just imagine 2 officers with the IDF uniform just walk down the path and I see them. And Aryeh shouts, Roni, akol beseder. Roni, everything is okay. And I was like, of course, everything is okay. And I didn't even ask you, how's it going? And again, he said, Roni, akol beseder. And in that moment, I understood that nothing is okay. And he said, Pitzi was severely wounded, but he's okay. So I look at Netanel, and I see Netanel crying. And I say, Netanel, why are you crying? Aryeh said he's okay. And he continues, Aryeh, Pitzi was shot in the face, but he's going to be okay. And I think at that moment, I understand that I'm standing at a crossroad, and I have to choose how to deal, how to manage, how to handle this crisis. And I go back to the house, and the kids are sitting eating dinner. And I remember like a playlist on Spotify that we usually hear. The name of the title of the playlist is Basof Yeh Tov. In the end, it will all be okay. And I thought to myself, how ironic. And then I took the kids into the room. I took Noam first. And I tell her, Noam, Abba was injured, but he's okay. And she looks at me. And she yells at me. And she said, but you promised me that he's safer than us. So don't ever make promises. And we drove to the hospital up north. As I entered the hospital, the security guard in the entrance looks at me and he asks me, are you here for the injured or the dead? And I look at him and I'm like, what? Are you here for the injured or the dead? And I say, the injured? What do you mean? That's another crossroad I remember of decision, of understanding that I could have been for the dead.
Because up until this moment, it never crossed your mind.
Not at all.
You felt like you're in the worst scenario.
Yeah. And then when you understand that it could have been even worse, so I have the ability to take, I'm here for the injured, and I'm going to take this role and do it the best as I can, as best as I can. Yeah, and I think from that moment, that's where our journey began.
So take me to this journey, really. I said before, and we're going to tap into that later, that Alumot Krav is a genius name, because in Hebrew, it's double or triple even meaning.
Exactly.
But I'm asking it because, we only hear about the dead, right? And there are so many soldiers that got wounded in this war, including Pitzi. And we never hear about them because they haven't died. Thank God they haven't died. But this is a real journey, right?
Exactly.
So I want you to explain to us, what does it mean for a family that gets this message that the father of the family is now wounded? How lives look like from that moment on?
So you're right. Maybe I'll just explain exactly what happened, and you can understand what's the journey, what it involves with. So on October 9th, 3 terrorists infiltrated Israel, and they ambushed Pitzi's force, his team, as they arrived to the scene. There were 3 casualties at that incident, and one of them was Pitzi's soldier, Gilad Molcho Zichrono Livracha, and 2 other soldiers that were killed. Deputy head of the brigade, Sgan Aluf Falim Abdallah, and his soldier, Jawad Amar. And it's very important to, remember those heroes. When Pitzi, I always knew I married Gibor Israel, Israeli hero. But at that time, I understood that even more because as Pitzi, they were tackled. And Pitzi, as he was trying to to get closer to the terrorist, he was shot in the face. The bullet hit just beneath his nose. It crushed his upper jaw and just got stuck miraculously on his first vertebra. Wow. Yeah. And the rehabilitation was when Pitzi's face was, his jaw was shut with wires, and he had a collar and tubes, and he was sitting on a wheelchair. And I always say, and I go back to your question, that my kids sent a very strong Abba, father, to war. And they didn't get him back the same way he left. And it's also part of the rehabilitation. It's a rehabilitation for the soldier, for the father, but also for the family. And I think another crossroad was, when should I bring the kids to see their father? Because although I married the most handsome Bluth of the family, he didn't really look good the days and weeks and months after the injury. And there was a very wise man that told me, Roni, the way that you are going to deal with this crisis is the same way, the same path that the kids are going to walk through. And I remember deciding to take the 3 kids to the hospital to explain exactly what happened.
When, by the way?
Just 1 week after he was injured, and the same day that we celebrated our 10th year's anniversary. Was very special. By the way, one of the benefits of getting injured at the beginning of the war is that all the artists are still available. So you remember me telling you about the playlist that we used to listen to. It was of a very known singer in Israel, Yasmin Mualim. And we listened to her all the time. And she came to the hospital. And if you ask my children what was more exciting, seeing your father for the first time after the injury or seeing Yasmin Mualim, I don't want to tell you the real answer they said. But it was very, very powerful. And what was most amazing about the reunion, I can say, is that there's a picture, a really very powerful picture of the kids seeing Pitzi for the first time. And Itai, our youngest, he was 2.5. He doesn't want to go to Pitzi's arms. He doesn't want to sit on him. And you can see Noam's face, our oldest, looking at Pitzi and trying to smile, like a very big smile for him. I remember she told me that she saw how frightened Itai was, and she didn't want Abba to get offended or to be sad about it. So she overcome all of her fears, and she just came and gave him a big hug and a kiss, although she was very scared. And
what a bright girl.
Yeah. And you understand in that moment that sometimes also kids make decisions to protect their parents.
That's incredible. But then, that was 1 week after, and you said all the celebrities come and greet and sing and everything, and like a whole festival of like trying to cheer up the soldiers, which is great. But then, how long were he being in the hospital for?
He was for 1 month in the hospital. And your question is,
what's going
exactly.
What happens after this 1 month when he comes back home?
It's such an important question because after I always say the cameras are going to go off and the microphone is going to be that's it. You go back to life. And that's what happens when you leave the hospital and you go back home. And it's the battle after the battle, I always say, because you go home and there's we live in a yishuv and there's a very strong community, of course. But at night, you close the door and that's it. And each one of us, Pitzi, myself, the children, have to deal with all the fears and all what the future holds for us. And I think what was amazing about the rehabilitation period, you can say, is that I still need to I'm still in the process, and I still need to understand exactly how I felt during that time. Usually when I speak about it, it's like in 2 sentences, as if it was like, yeah, it was very easy and that's it. But it wasn't.
But what was easy? So first of all, I get it that he was in rehabilitation, right? Like he was fighting to get back to himself. Was he in a wheelchair?
At the beginning, he was in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Okay. So he's fighting for get better. But how does it affect your home, your house?
So imagine the kids. Okay, it was the beginning of the war. So we didn't have there was no school, no daycare, nothing. So the kids are home all the time. And there was by the way, like all the men were enlisted. So you're the only family that you have your Abba at home.
Yeah,
so
by
it's
the way,
also weird.
How does it feel? Because in Bluth family, everyone are recruited.
Exactly.
And there is one Pitzi sitting at home doing exercise.
How difficult it was for him not to be part. He was like, what? That's it? My mission, my entire life, I trained for this war. And that's it. In 2 days, that's it. I'm done.
I think sometimes people here doesn't realize that this is part of your personality, right?
Wow, exactly.
And then two days after the war had started, he was taken.
He was literally taken out of the battlefield.
Yeah, and it's part of his personality. And now, of course, he needs a rehabilitation, but also needs to work on on his mental state because he's not fighting, because he's now injured.
You have no idea how accurate you are, because it was part of the rehabilitation is not only the physical, training. It's also exactly as you said, it's also the mental part of it, the emotional part of it. And what was amazing about Pitzi, he's a true hero, really. I remember him not looking on his phone, not reading news, not going on any social media, training his mind to get better. And we were talking about the kids. Try to imagine you come back home, you see your father sitting on a wheelchair, literally fighting a different kind of battle. I remember the kids were so excited when they opened, they took out the wires from his jaw, and he needed to, also all the physical therapy that he needed to do to open his mouth,
because he couldn't talk before.
He couldn't talk. He didn't even talk. He wrote we communicate by writing at the beginning.
So only Noam, the oldest, could have even communicate with him.
Exactly.
The rest of the kids couldn't.
Right. So you talk with your eyes.
Wow.
And so there were part of his physical therapy was to try to put some like strings. How do you say? I don't know, different kinds of things to open the mouth. And I remember at the beginning you put 2, 3, and then Noam rushed to my room. She said, "Ima, you can't imagine. Abba was able to put 6 at the same time in his mouth." You understand? The kids were part of the rehabilitation.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was. And I'm happy. I'm happy they took part of it. I'm happy Pitzi regained his independence. I'm happy to see how strong he was. It wasn't easy.
How long did it take?
So almost 5 months until they took off his collar and he was able to drive again.
Wow.
And that day when he took off his collar and was able to go back to drive, I came back home and I told him, you're laughing, I know. And I told him, Pitzi, there's no way that in our house, there's no one who's serving in the reserves.
So wait just a second, because we're gonna go into this part. But first of all, I want to tell you that this is incredible, because he was injured very severely, and for him to be functioning good enough in 5 months is unbelievable. And yeah, he is. I believe you that he's a very strong person, and the fact that you took it to your house and you have had your kids in this journey together, celebrate the small wins. I think it's so important also for their mental health.
Wow.
And then you came out and say someone needs to serve in reserves. Obviously, he couldn't because he's still in rehabilitation, right? The fact that he can drive now doesn't mean he can fight now.
Exactly.
So what did you mean by that?
Exactly. So just to understand, again, in our yeshuv, you didn't have a mother and a father in the same under the same roof at the same time during those months. You understand?
A very recruited issue, a very recruited,
yeah.
I would say, I don't know,
town. Yeah.
Or whatever.
So I felt like if he can't go and fight, so literally I will go and do that. I felt that our house was stable enough for me to go and to literally, I really felt to protect our national home, if you can say it so. And in a very maybe cute and very, how can I say, maybe immature thought that I'm going to bring back the hostages. I had the vision of Shiri Bibas and two of her boys, Ariel and Kfir, and I thought it could have been me. I need to bring them back. Yeah.
Listen, I can understand the motivation, and I can tell you that as a Zionist, as a woman, as a proud woman that also served in the military, I totally understand what you're saying. But as a mother, how can you tell your kids that just 5 months ago experienced almost the worst thing that can happen? Okay, almost, but still, like their rehabilitation and everything that comes afterward, like such a major crisis in your home that for sure affect their mental health, even though maybe, you worked on their mental health. And then all of a sudden telling them, now that daddy is home, mom is going to serve in reverse to the war. Doesn't matter like exactly what was your part, but like going away from home.
Right.
So how could you do it as a mother?
No, it's a very good question, and obviously I asked myself those questions, and I remember thinking, here's another crossroad. How do you want to live your life? Fear or with hope? And by the way, your question was a question that my kids asked me too. I remember Itai, he was already like almost 3 years old, and he looks at me and he says, Ima, when you'll get injured, will we come and visit you at the hospital too? And I was like, okay, let me explain again. You have to understand, when there was like a thing, okay? Like 6 months after the war started, there are a lot of videos on social media when you see the fathers come back from the war, from the front, with this song at the background, גם בשעות החשוכות של הלילה, also in the darkest hours of the night. It was very emotional. My kids didn't have that.
Even once, because
even
on the second day or third day.
Yeah. They went to visit their father, and their father didn't, lift them up high and to the lyrics. And I said, I'm going to give them a different experience, a better experience. I can't say that I can lift them as high as Pitzi, but yeah, I gave them. There's another sentence in that, like the lyrics continues in that song. Od yavo yamim tovim. There will be better days ahead of us, and I understand. I can't know. I don't know what's going to be in the future for my kids. I don't know if I scarred them too much with my decisions. But yeah, when your house, your home is stable enough, you go and you protect Israel. Just like that.
So this value, you say that you wanted, first of all, to give them a little bit of the Israeliness of this time, of that time, that the father or like whoever, the parent coming home and like, it's funny, but I can relate to what you're saying because this is what they also saw all around them. Because in your town, everyone were recruited, and also the value of serving in the army, regardless to what you're doing. And I assume you weren't like in combat, right? But it doesn't matter because you're doing whatever you can in order to help your country.
Exactly. So it was funny, by the way. I remember, I decided I want to go to recruit, right? Okay, so what now? So I called each one of Pitzi's brothers until the fifth one agreed to take me. By the way, he's my commander now in the reserves. Okay. So you didn't
have a job. Like you really knocked on doors.
I knocked on doors, please take me. And I'm now an operations officer in Biluim, by the way, at the Paratroopers Brigade. And for almost a year, I made sure that my brother, who was a sniper at the Tzanchanim, at the Paratroopers Brigade, comes back, returns back home safely. So it was very special for me. Well, actually, when I was 8 months pregnant,
another story, because during this time you also got pregnant.
Right.
And you served in
Baruch
Miluim. You were in reserve while you were pregnant.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. So they told me gently, Roni, thank you for your service. The Syrian front is no longer relevant for you. Be'atzlacha,
good luck.
Bon chance. I don't know how do you say. Good luck. And yeah, I went back home. And I asked myself, what's my mission now? And that's when I decided I want to give voice to the wives of the wounded since October 7th.
And that what got you to open the podcast, Alumot Krav. We're going to park this episode now because it's so interesting. And I have so many questions to ask you about the podcast from so many angles. But we will stop our conversation now and we'll continue on next episode to discuss about the podcast, the reasons. We already know what the reasons that made you open it, but everything about a podcast in our next episode. So stay with me.
Okay.
And for you, stay tuned to our next episode with Roni Raffeld Bluth, when we will talk about the podcast Alumot Krav that she opened